Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about something that I don't feel like is talked about enough, but is very crucial if you are someone who is planning a Disney trip coming up soon or thinking about a Disney trip coming up soon. And that is speaking the Disney parks language. So that is something that everybody I feel like needs to know because there are so many terms and abbreviations and things that come into planning a Disney trip, visiting the Disney parks. So, hopefully, today's episode will give you a good basis to start on deciphering some of the code that is the Disney parks. We are going to talk about some terminology and kind of give you some little, maybe a little encyclopedia of Disney terminology. Then we're also going to talk about Disney abbreviations because there are a lot of them and they can get lost in translation very easy. So that is the hope for today, because Disney definitely has those terms and abbreviations that are frequently used when talking about the resorts and the parks. So my hope is that this will give you that guide to help you out. Just a note before we kind of jump in, this is not by any means a complete total abbreviation list or terminology list when it comes to Disney. We would be here all night because there are so many things to talk about. But I'm going to give you what I think are the highlights and some of the more important ones that will hopefully help you then not have quite so big of a list that you don't know what they mean. So that's the hope for today. Hopefully by the end you feel really good about all of these terms. So let's start off with some different terminology that the Disney parks use. Now, some of this may seem to those of us who have visited Disney like a very basic, oh, yeah, everybody knows that. That may or may not be the case. You know, those of us that are frequenting the parks a lot or have been or live in the Disney bubble, these are going to seem like really basic terms. But for somebody who is brand new to the parks, has never visited before, is planning their very first trip, these I think are useful terms that somebody might want to know before going to the Disney parks. So, we're gonna go kind of in alphabetical order because that was just the way that my brain arranged it when I was making these notes and compiling my list. I will mention that some of our lovely Mom Street community members did help out on our Discord channel. I had put a question in there about what terms and abbreviations they thought would be helpful to include in this episode. So quite a few of these were mentioned in our Discord channel. So if you were someone who chimed in, thank you so much for your assistance. I really appreciate it because I feel like in a topic like this, it's easy to forget something that might be helpful to those who need it. So, first term that we're going to start with is kind of a basic one, but I think it's important, and that is just the term attraction. Depending on if you're super familiar with the Disney parks or any sort of theme park or even somewhere like a Six Flags or those types of things. Attraction may or may not be something that you're used to hearing. So at Disney, the term attraction just really applies to any ride or show in the parks. It's something that you can attend, go to, view, ride on in the parks. So think about your different shows you might go to a theater to sit in, any rides that you might go to. Those are all considered attractions in the Disney parks. So anytime you hear that, that's what somebody's talking about. It doesn't refer to just rides. It is kind of all encompassing when it comes to that. The next one that I want to talk about is audio animatronic. This is one that most people have probably heard. It's a little more commonly used for things outside of the parks, I would think, to some extent. And basically, the definition that is given is a lifelike robotic person or animal that is programmed to move, speak, sing simultaneously. So they have simultaneous responsibility for that audio animatronic. The majority of the attractions that you will visit at the Disney parks have a lot of audio animatronics. Think about things like Pirates of the Caribbean. Think about, you know, Haunted Mansion. A lot of the ones at Magic Kingdom or in Disneyland, their equivalent over there, are going to have those audio animatronics because that was the technology that was new and revolutionary whenever Walt and his team were creating the Disney parks. So that's what a lot of those kind of original early attractions used before, more popular. Now we see screens and more like 3D effects. This was, before all of that. So that's when you will find a lot of those. If you're visiting the Disney parks and you hear someone talk about a backstage area, all that means is that it is an area just for the workers, just for the cast members, which is our next terminology, which just means an employee of Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney parks. They're all considered cast members. So a backstage area is an area that is just for cast members. There is no guest access. That's where the cast members can go for breaks. That's where a lot of your characters will get prepped and ready to come on stage, which is another term that you will hear in the Disney parks, which is the opposite of backstage. On stage is the guest areas in the parks. So a little bit of stage terminology for that because that's the way that Walt Disney set up the parks. It was a guest-centered area that these workers were going on to, so thus the name cast member, part of the cast for the show, for the production that is the Disney parks. So a couple terms: backstage, on stage, cast member. Those are all really important ones to know. Something else that you might need to know when it comes to visiting the Disney parks are the terminology that they use in the ticketing atmosphere. So again, these are kind of alphabetical order, so we're going to hop around a little bit. But the first one, ticket wise, that I want to talk about is the terminology base ticket. So a base ticket is simply just a ticket that is good for one park for one day. That is your or one park per day, I should say. A base ticket is something that is good for one park per day, and that is just your base ticket for Disney World whenever you're planning your trip. So we'll get into more ticket options here a little bit down the list in my ABC order, but that is your first terminology for tickets. Something else you might want to look into when you are planning your Disney trip is some dining. So you may hear the term character dining. Character dining is a restaurant experience where you have the opportunity to meet one or more characters during your meal. There are tons of character dining experiences at Disney World. There are a few at Disneyland, but definitely still some great options. And we've covered actually all of the character dining options on Mom Street. So again, our archives are available on our YouTube channel at Mom Street USA. You can find them on there very easily. But character dining is just that. You have the dining experience where you get the opportunity to interact or meet with one or more characters. Lots of different styles of character dining. Some are sit down table service where you've got a waiter or waitress that is, taking your order and bringing you food. There are buffets that are character dining as well. So a couple different options when it comes to that, but basically just refers to the fact that there are characters around. Moving down our list, this is going to feel a little bit like rapid fire, but it's just kind of feel like I'm reading an encyclopedia a little bit to you guys today. But moving down our list, hopping around a little, we're going to talk about dark rides. This is a term that I feel like is not very well utilized, but may be helpful if you are someone that is looking into the types of attractions. We talked about attraction, the type of attractions that are at the Disney park that you're looking to visit. So, a dark ride is something that is classified as an indoor ride that moves the guests through scenes to create a narrative. So, think about something like if you're familiar with the Peter Pan ride at Magic Kingdom. That's a very, very popular dark ride that you can find there. So those types of rides that are inside, mostly in the dark or dark-ish, right, setting that move you through a narrative. So there's got to be some sort of a storyline that's going through whenever it comes to that type of ride. You will find that classification on the Disney website. So if you're looking up different rides to go on and you're unsure about what type of ride it is, you will find that dark rides are a classification that they use. So that can help you kind of determine. Some dark rides are slow moving, some are faster moving. So you may have to look at some other key factors underneath there. But dark ride is definitely a category that you will see on the website as you're looking through. A couple other things in our alphabet in that start with the letter D. Deluxe resort. Deluxe resort. We haven't talked about resorts yet, but a deluxe resort you will find at Disney is the highest level and most expensive of the resorts at Disney World and Disneyland. So all of the Disneyland resorts are considered that deluxe category resort. At Disney World, there are, I believe, around 15-ish. Don't quote me on that number. I didn't look it up. That's just off the top of my head. Deluxe resorts, around 15-ish. Don't quote me on that number. I didn't look it up. That's just off the top of my head. Deluxe resorts that you can find. So that deluxe category is just your top tier, your most expensive resorts on Disney property. Something else to look into. This one is a little bit more specific. Doesn't always apply to or doesn't apply to everybody. And that is the Disability Access Service Pass. So again, going alphabetically, this is also referred to as the DAS Pass or DAS. This pass is Disney's service that accommodates guests who cannot wait in lines. And I'm not going to go into details about DAS and how it works and who qualifies. All of that is available on the website, but it's helpful to know that that is the terminology that Disney uses for that accessibility feature that they offer. Again, that is the Disability Access Service or DAS or DAS or DOS Pass. A couple different ways that you might hear that referred to from someone that you may be speaking to about Disney. A few more in our alphabetical list that start with D. The Disney Dining Plan is something that you may hear as you are looking to plan your trip. Currently, right now, there are lots of package deals with dining included. So you will see that a lot on the Disney website as I'm recording this. These deals for the Disney dining plan come and go, but the Disney dining plan itself is always available. And that is just essentially pre-purchasing dining credits that you pay for as part of your vacation package that then you can utilize for meals at Disney. There's two different options that they offer. They offer a quick service and a table service option, and I'll talk about those here in just a second. But they have two different options, and they will essentially give you so many meals and so many snacks throughout your vacation, depending on how many days you're going and what you pay for with that. Now, under Disney dining, like I just mentioned, there are two different categories that you can look to purchase, or two different types of restaurants that you can look to go to, even without the Disney dining plan. So, all of these restaurants are open to anybody who chooses to eat there. Some of them need reservations, some of them don't. Your table service restaurants are going to be the ones that you sit down. You're going to have a waiter that is going to take your order, bring your food, those types of things. So that is your table service option. Your quick service option is going to be more of like a cafeteria style where you go, order your food, pick it up on a tray, and then go and find a seat to sit at. So no waiters or waitresses when it comes to the quick service option. So those are two other terms that will be helpful if you are visiting Disney. Those are also listed under the restaurants on the Disney website or the app. So again, if you're doing your research and looking into different options that you may have for dining, those terms are what you're going to see. You're going to see quick service for those, that you go up and order and take it to a table. You're going to see table service for those sit down waiter waitress style restaurants. So all of that then is encompassed under the Disney dining or Disney dining plan if you are pre-purchasing those credits. So a couple layers to that one. Hopefully I explained that in a way that all makes sense as we are thinking about dining for your upcoming trip. Something else to think about and consider is not directly parks related, but is Disney property related, and that is Disney Springs. So it may seem like a given that a lot of people know what Disney Springs is, but it has gone through a couple iterations and a couple name changes in the past year. So Disney Springs is the shopping district located at Walt Disney World on property. That is where you can go to find the biggest merchandise store on Walt Disney World property, which is the World of Disney store. They also have a lot of third-party operated stores and shops and restaurants there as well. So Disney Springs is the name of the shopping district at Disney World. Now, if you're visiting Disneyland, they have something equivalent but smaller, but theirs is still called Downtown Disney, which is the former title of what the one at Walt Disney World was called prior to the change in the 2010s sometime. I don't remember exactly when. But Downtown Disney is still that shopping district that you will find outside of Disneyland and Disney's California Adventure. It is the difference between the two. The one at Disneyland is directly connected to the parks. So you can easily walk to their downtown Disney district from inside the parks. At Disney World, you're going to have to either drive or take bus transportation to get to Disney Springs because it is not directly connected to the parks that are there. So, just a little note about that if you're wondering about transportation, but those are your shopping districts that you're going to find on either coast of the United States based parks. The final term in our ABC D list is the Disney Vacation Club. You will also hear this referred to as DVC. And Disney Vacation Club is Disney's timeshare program where guests can purchase points to go towards Disney accommodations. So most of the time you're going to be purchasing points at a home resort. It is a timeshare. You're purchasing a set amount of points that you can then utilize. You are not limited to just that particular resort that you purchase for, but that will become your home resort. There's lots of details and things that are very specific to DVC and that program for the Disney Vacation Club. Again, is the full name of the term that we're talking about. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out online because I am not DVC and I do not have all of the details. I know enough about it to help explain it briefly to you all, but I am not DVC. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to look that up online. But that is their timeshare program and the terminology that they will use when speaking about people who own points in that timeshare program. Moving on out of the D's, I feel like there was a lot that we had in that section. We're going to kind of press fast forward through the rest of this alphabet here. The next term and the first term in our E section of our ABC list of terms for Disney parks is e-ticket. This is again one kind of like we talked about earlier with Dark Ride. This is one that I feel like is not always used, or you may hear it and most people don't really know what that means. So an e-ticket attraction, or if you consider something e-ticket, it is a term that is used to describe basically the most popular slash newest slash biggest and best Disney attractions. So this term is very historical in the Disney parks. It comes from the old ticketing system that they used to use. So they used to have books of tickets that you could purchase for the attractions at Disney parks. Um, in each of the books of tickets had A, B, C, D, and E listed in there. And then each ride or attraction would get categorized under those, and they would be different amounts that you would have to pay to ride. So the E ticket was the end of that book. The most thrilling and most popular attractions were considered those E tickets, whereas the A ticket was kind of the tamest and most easygoing kind of attractions at the park. So If I'm giving examples of something that would be considered an e-ticket, thinking about Disney World, I would think like Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. That would be considered an e-ticket attraction. Something like Tron at Magic Kingdom, that would be considered an e-ticket attraction. The newest, the most popular, the biggest, most thrilling, that's what you're looking for. If you're thinking about Disneyland, something like their Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout would be a great option for that. So you kind of get the idea with those. Again, that's something that you can look up. Now, the Disney sites and apps will not list e-ticket because it is kind of a term that is not used directly by Disney parks, but used frequently by locals and people who do go to the parks a lot will use that terminology, but it's not something that's directly used by Disney. So you won't necessarily find that classification online, but you will see that they have like thrill rides listed and things like that. So you can kind of gauge that. And again, is knowing e-ticket and what that means going to be crucial to your Disney vacation? Probably not, but it's a fun term to know. You may or may not hear it depending on who you're around on your trip. So that's why I included it in this list for us. Let's talk a little bit about characters. We haven't touched on characters yet on our terminology list here, but a couple things to know about when you're referring to different characters. The first is you may hear the term face character. And if you hear the term face character in the parks or at the resorts or wherever you may see a character on Disney property, that just simply refers to a character whose actual face is visible and they can and will speak to guests. So something like the princesses are going to be face characters. Characters like Mary Poppins, Alice, Peter Pan, Moana, those are all going to be considered face characters when it comes to the parks. On the opposite side of that, you also may hear the term fur character. So, a fur character is a character whose face is covered by their costume and they do not speak because of that. So, Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Pluto, Donald, Daisy, those are all going to be considered fur characters. The country bears at Magic Kingdom are going to be considered fur characters. Stitch is considered a fur character. You get the idea. So, two different designations for that. And that's also a really good way to know whether or not a character is going to speak to in your interaction with them. So that way you know what to anticipate with your kiddo. So if you are standing in line and you notice that the character you're standing in line to meet is a face character, well, then you know that you're going to be able to have a verbal interaction with them. If they are a fur character, please still speak to them, but just understand they're going to be doing a lot of pointing and gesturing, and their handler, their cast member handler who is with them, will help kind of translate if that's needed in your interaction. But that's a really good way to know with your kiddos and to be able to prep them accordingly. And I did talk a lot about character meet and greets on a recent episode of Mom Street. So if you want to hear more about how character meet and greets work and ideas and tips and tricks for that, you can find that episode again in our archives on our YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all those good places as well. Okay, skipping on a little bit in our alphabet of terminology here to something completely different. And we're in the H's now, so moving right along to hidden Mickey. This is a super fun term, and this is something that I encourage everybody, especially if you're taking like elementary aged kids to the parks or older from there, but definitely starting kind of that pre-K elementary age, is hidden Mickeys in the parks are Mickey Mouse shaped icons. They can be, and most often are, a one big circle for the head and two small circles for the ears. So you're going to see a three circle hidden Mickey, and they can be found hidden everywhere through the parks, resorts, and they've been placed there purposefully. Now, frequently you will also find like silhouettes of Mickey, or sometimes you'll find Mickey's full body, depending on what you're looking for. There are several books of hidden Mickeys that exist out in the Disney universe. So look those up and grab yourself one of those. Some of them come with pre-made like scavenger hunts, but basically as you're standing in queues or riding rides, it's something extra fun that you can be looking for with your group that you're with. Now, these are placed purposefully there by Imagineers. Well, you may be asking yourself, what is an Imagineer? Well, that perfectly leads us to that term on our list. So, an Imagineer is a term that was coined by Walt Disney, and he created it with a using a combination of imagination and engineer. So the Imagineers are the people who dream up and create everything that is put into the Disney parks and the resorts. So that is your creative team behind and your team that is on the ground physically building all of the attractions, shows. They do the parades, the fireworks, they do everything in the parks. So those hidden Mickeys are purposefully placed there by Disney Imagineers, and the Imagineers are those people who have created the parks. Again, hidden Mickeys are so fun for something a little extra bonus to be able to look for. They're great ways to help with your long lines you may be waiting in. Some of those hidden Mickey books are divided by attraction. So if you know that you're going to be waiting in a 30-minute line for a certain attraction, you can flip to the page in that hidden Mickey book and look up the different options for that particular ride and hopefully be able to find some yourself. Okay, moving forward in our alphabet to a couple other terms that will be helpful. We've got a lot of M's coming up, so we're going to live with some M terms here for the next few. The first one is magic band, and I should have grabbed one, and I didn't to show you, those of you who are watching us visually right now. But a magic band is a rubber wristband that serves as your ticket, resort key, and more. So there are several different iterations of magic bands. The newest ones have LED lights in them. There are some older models that do not, that just have a little Mickey head. But basically, imagine kind of a rubbery version of like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit that is Disney themed, and you can utilize that to get in and out of the parks, your resort room if you're staying on property. The newer ones do have some interactive features with the character statues around the parks and with bounty hunting in Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. They are not necessary. You get the question a lot, at least I do, as someone who helps people give them tips for their trips and things. People frequently will ask, are magic bands, like, do we need to have magic bands? You do not need to have them. They are just a fun accessory, and they are a more convenient way to have your ticket kind of readily available. They in the past they were free and included with vacation packages. They are no longer free. They typically run anywhere from $35 to $45 for your standard ones. Some of the more limited special edition ones are quite a bit more expensive, some of them up into the $100 or $200 range, because some of them are that specialty and they have some big brand names that they'll collaborate with, such as like Dooney and Burke and things like that. So you'll find magic bands in all sorts of ranges. They do have just basic colored ones. They have a lot of Disney character ones as well. I have some Stitch magic bands because Stitch is one of my favorite characters. So you'll find lots of different options for magic bands. So again, not required, but definitely a fun little way to have a little bit of extra magic that you get to carry around with you. The next in our list of terminology for the Disney parks in our M's is Magic Mobile. So this is actually something that can help you if you choose not to have a magic band. And Magic Mobile is Disney's term for the system from the Disney app, which is the My Disney Experience app, which we'll talk about here in a moment, that will allow you to have your ticket or pass in your mobile wallet on your device. So, those of you that are familiar with utilizing mobile wallets for paying with credit cards or ID cards, things like that, you can use your device's mobile wallet to have your Disney ticket on as your means of entry. And that is through the Magic Mobile section of your Disney app. So that is something that you have to set up ahead of time to have it preloaded. You have to kind of agree to offload it off of your uh, My Disney Experience app and put it in your mobile wallet. So definitely something to do ahead of time, but it is another way of gaining entry into the parks. Do keep in mind that if you want to use your phone, you have to go through that process. There is nothing that the cast members can scan at the entry point. If you don't go through that process, they're going to send you over to guest services to get that done if you're at the tap styles waiting to get in. So be sure that you do that if you're not planning on using a Magic Band or having a physical ticket, which is your other option, obviously, to be able to get in. And a physical ticket, you would need to see guest services to handle that as well. So while we're talking about the app, let's talk about My Disney Experience. My Disney Experience is the term and the name of the Disney World app. So they don't just call it Disney World, it is called My Disney Experience, and that is where you will find everything you need to know for your Disney World trip. Now, Disneyland makes it a lot easier, so I didn't even include it on my list because their app is just called the Disneyland app. Don't know why Disney World's is different. They just decided to be difficult with the naming, I guess. But that Magic Mobile is something that you will find in that My Disney Experience Disney World app. Something else that we actually talked about recently here on Mom Street USA that I was just mentioning earlier in our character episode, we talked a little bit about PhotoPass and what Magic Shots and Memory Maker are. So let's talk about all of those terms here to make sure that you're clued in if you missed that episode. PhotoPass is the overall terminology that Disney uses for photos that are taken by Disney cast members. And you will find PhotoPass locations throughout the parks. A lot, especially in Disney World, not as many in Disneyland, but you will still find them there. And those are specific cast members that their role is to take those photos for you and your family. So this is something that you have to purchase. And when you go through to do that, you will purchase what they call the Memory Maker. So Memory Maker is the purchase that allows you access to all of the photos taken by PhotoPass. So PhotoPass is the actual act of getting the photo taken, but without the Memory Maker, you're going to have a big Disney watermark across your photo, and you're not going to be able to view the whole thing or download it without that watermark. So Memory Maker is the term for purchasing those photos to be able to have them, download them, save them on your device. One of the options of photos is a Magic Shot. So a Magic Shot is a digital enhancement of your photo that is taken by a PhotoPass cast member. They'll do things such as adding a Disney character to the photo, or one of the ones that I like that they do on Main Street, they have you put your hand up like this, like you're holding a bunch of balloons, and then they'll put these adorable Mickey balloons, added digitally into your photo. So that is what they call a Magic Shot. Most of the cast members that do PhotoPass, regardless of location, should have at least one Magic Shot. You just have to ask them. So if you're getting your photo taken, wherever in the parks you find a good angle and a good PhotoPass, line that you're going to wait in that's not too long, when they go to take your photo, just ask them if they have any magic shots at their location. And chances are very, very good that they're going to say yes, and then they're going to tell you what to do. They might have you put your hands out in front of you, and then they're going to put Tinkerbell in your hands. Or there's so many different options that they have. Now, if your cast member says no, feel free to ask them if any other cast member, PhotoPass cast members around them have a magic shot, because chances are good they know what locations do, because those PhotoPass cast members rotate a lot, right? They're not always members rotate a lot, right? They're not always in the same place at the same time. So they're going to know where you can find a magic shot that is nearby. So that is what you are hearing when you hear someone talking about a magic shot, or seeing it on a Disney Facebook group, or, a blog. Those magic shots are those ones where they digitally enhance the photos and add characters and fun little Disney surprises into them. A few more M's here. The next one that I want to talk about is actually an abbreviation and a term that you will hear. So I put it up in this category because I felt like it made sense to me. And that is the abbreviation for the Orlando International Airport, which is MCO. So it's not an M term necessarily, but it is something that you will hear and see if you are planning to fly into Disney. MCO is the abbreviation for the Orlando International Airport, and that is the main airport that is right in Orlando. There is another airport nearby that I will talk about um, in a little bit when we get a little further down the list here, but just wanted to put that in there so that way you all knew. Okay, let's continue on with our M's. Our next M term is mobile order. So we talked earlier about the Disney dining plan and the table service versus quick service. So mobile order goes hand in hand with a lot of quick service restaurants. Those are the ones that you will order at the window, get your food on a tray, and walk it yourself to the table. So, a mobile order is a special feature at select quick service restaurants. Not every quick service restaurant has them, but the majority do. So, it is a special feature that allows you to place your order from your phone app, either the My Disney Experience app at Disney World or the Disneyland app at Disneyland. And then you will go pick it up at a designated time and designated window, thus giving you the option to skip the standby line, in quotes. You won't have to stand in line to wait to order and then stand in line to wait for your food. You can do it all on your phone. It saves a ton of time, especially when you have little kids that are hungry with you. You want to make sure that you have that covered. So mobile order is that special feature at the quick service restaurants that will allow you to order that ahead of time and not have to wait in line, which is a nice perk of that. And again, that's quick service locations. The next M that we have is moderate resort. So we talked earlier about deluxe resorts. Moderate resorts are the mid-level of your resorts at Walt Disney World. They're going to be middle of the line when it comes to the amenities that they have, and middle of the line when it comes to their price point. Generally speaking, you're going to find these in the 3 to 500 range. Generally closer to the threes, sometimes twos, depending on deals and things that Disney is offering. But you will find those at Walt Disney World. Now, it is worth mentioning that Disneyland does not have any moderate resorts that are considered Disneyland property. Disneyland has a lot of partner resorts and partner hotels around it, but there are no official Disneyland resorts that are considered the moderate range. They're all in that deluxe range that we talked about earlier. So the mid-level is called moderate resorts for Disney World. A few more M's to get through. The next one in our M list is the monorail. This one I feel like is probably known by most people that have visited the park or want to visit the park. And the monorail is the Disney transportation option that you see. It's one of the biggest iconic transportation modes at the Disney parks, and it links together Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and the TTC, which is another one of those abbreviations that we will get to, and I'll go over it again later. But the TTC is the Transportation and Ticket Center. So the monorail is linking that with Magic Kingdom and Epcot. And it is a really fun way to get around property. A lot of people will purposefully make part of their trip just a ride on the monorail because it is such a fun way to get around. You're up above the lines of cars waiting to get in and out of the parks, and you go a little quicker. You don't have to worry about stoplights as much, but it's definitely a super fun way to travel to those select locations around the parks. And our final M for our terminology here in the Disney, speaking the Disney parks language, is mousekeeping. Mousekeeping is a super fun term used at Disney to refer to the housekeeping services at the Disney resorts. So, to make it a little play on words and a little more fun, instead of just calling it housekeeping, they like to switch it up and call it mousekeeping. So, you will hear it referred to as that around the Disney resorts. Just a fun little term to keep in mind so that way you know what people are talking about. Okay, moving on to our P terms here in our alphabet of different terminologies for speaking the Disney Parks language. We talked a little bit about tickets earlier, so let's talk about another ticket option, and that is the park hopper ticket option. So we talked about base tickets earlier being one park per day. So your park hopper option is exactly what it sounds like. It is your Disney ticket that allows you to visit more than one park per day. It is going to be a higher cost because you do have that option to hop between the parks and visit multiple or all of the parks in one day if you choose to. But that is what you will hear and what you will see on the Disney website when you're going to book your package or price your vacation. Is that park hopper gives you the ability to go to more than one park per day. And just a side note, all of these Disney tickets will allow you in and out access. So if you have a base ticket and you're visiting Epcot for the day, you have in and out privileges for Epcot. And if you've got a park hopper, you've got in and out privileges for any of the parks that you visit throughout that day. That's automatically included. Let's see. We've got another one more P option, and that is the term pre-show. You will hear this when people are referring to different sections and aspects of different attractions. And the pre-show is part of the attraction that takes place before the attraction itself, but it often is very imperative for setting up the story. So a lot of the newer attractions that have been put up in the Disney parks recently have those pre-shows. Something like Rise of the Resistance has several pre-shows. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot has a couple pre-shows. So it's those rooms that you go into before you actually experience the full attraction that helps to set up the story. That's what the pre-show is. Just a brief note on the word queue, because this is something that you will hear in Disney terminology that just wanted to mention. And a queue is simply just another term for the line that you wait in for an attraction or for food or to get on transportation. Any line that you wait in, you will often hear called a queue when it comes to most theme parks, but also obviously Disney parks as well. Moving on to R. Our first R term is rider switch or rider swap. You will hear both of those terms used, and that is referring to a feature available at many attractions that allows adult guests to take turns waiting for with a younger guest that is unable or unwilling to experience a ride while the other adult rides. So it's basically the option that you have if you are two adults and you have one kiddo, but you still want to go on something that maybe the kiddo either isn't old enough, isn't tall enough, doesn't want to ride on. You still have the option to use rider switch or rider swap. And the way that you do that is you just go and see the cast member at the beginning of the queue, which we just talked about, and they will be able to explain to you what you need to do. set it up for you so that one adult can go wait in line and ride while the other adult stays with your kiddo. And then once the first adult is done riding, you will swap or switch your riders, and the second rider will get to go through the lightning lane line, which we'll talk about lightning lanes here in a little bit. So that is that process. And that works for any ride that has a height requirement, is going to have rider switch or rider swap, or anything that may be uh, a little spooky or scary for kids. So something like a haunted mansion is going to have that option for you, or something that's dark. It's got some drops. You will know whether or not your kiddo wants to ride, and if your kiddo is saying absolutely not, and you really want to ride it, go and talk to the cast member that is at the beginning of that queue, to just see if rider swap is available and see if they can help you set that up. So that is a really great option that Disney has, and most theme parks honestly have some sort of an option like that, for kiddos that don't want to ride or aren't big enough to ride some of the e-ticket attractions. You see where these terms just they keep circling back as I'm defining all of these for you. So that is a really important one if you're going with little kids that may be a little apprehensive about some of the rides. Our other R term is rope drop. And if you heard our last episode of Mom Street USA, we talked a lot about rope drop. And rope drop just refers to the time that guests can begin riding rides at the park. So that is basically just park open time. The term comes from the fact that in some places they still do, but in all the places they used to have the cast members physically drop ropes that were keeping the guests back and away from the park. And the rope drop just signified that the park was open and that they were available. The rides were available for them to go and experience. So if you want more advice and tips on rope drop, go back an episode, because that is where you will find the information on that. Okay, we're getting towards the end of our terms list. Then we're going to go through some abbreviations kind of in rapid fire succession here. But let's move into a couple S terms. We talked about MCO being the Orlando airport earlier. The other airport in the greater Orlando area is the Sanford International Airport. It is a much smaller airport that is located northeast of Orlando. It's quite a bit further out than MCO is, but a lot of people like to fly in there. Some of the more budget-friendly airlines fly into Sanford, but do keep in mind that it is quite a bit further out. So if you're using transportation, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more to get to Disney property from there. SFB is the abbreviation for the Sanford International Airport when you're looking up airports and looking at flights. So just another option if you're looking to go into that airport. Another S option is a transportation option, which is the Skyliner. So we talked about the monorail being kind of the OG fun way to travel across property. Well, then the Skyliner would be the brand new way to travel across Disney property. It is a gondola style Disney transportation, and it runs between Pop Century and Art of Animation is one end. And then it will make a stop at the Caribbean Beach Resort, the Riviera Resort. It'll also take you to Hollywood Studios and Epcot. So those are the places that you can access with the Skyliner. It is free and available for anyone on Disney property to use. It is a very fun way to get from place to place. I would caution that if you do not enjoy heights, probably not a great option. And I would also caution against riding it if you think it's going to be very windy or stormy. They will shut it down if it's not safe for guests to ride, and we'll provide some extra buses and things like that. But just keep that in mind if you're looking at Skyliner options. A lot of people really enjoy staying at Pop Century and Art of Animation because they are on that Skyliner route, and it helps them be able to navigate getting to the parks more easily. So that is the Skyliner if you hear that term as you're looking to plan your Disney trip. And just like I mentioned with the monorail, a lot of people will kind of make it part of their trip to to take the Skyliner. So if they're visiting Epcot or Hollywood Studios and they want to Skyliner over, to grab something different to eat, when I'm at Hollywood Studios, I like to take the Skyliner over to the Riviera. They've got some really great quick service food over there. So I like to do that. But there's lots of people will include that in their planning because it's a fun way to just get from place to place that's different than the norm, which is always fun when you're at Disney. One more S term is the term standby. So you will hear this when people are talking about queues. We talked about queues earlier. That the standby queue is just simply the regular line at an attraction. So no extra passes or skipping the line. That is your standby queue. And the standby time is what you will see listed on your Disney app. So if you're looking at wait times, that is the standby line that you are seeing when it comes to those terms. Let's see. We're moving into T's now. We talked about quick service. Just want to again remind you that table service is your dining experience where you're seated at a table and served by a waiter. So we talked about that earlier when it came to the Disney dining plan. So that is our T. Another fun term that you might hear when you are visiting the parks, specifically Magic Kingdom, is the term utilidors. This may or may not be something that you come across as you are doing your research for your Disney trip, but the utilidors are the system of tunnels that are underneath Magic Kingdom that allow cast members easy access to get across the park and are used for other park operations such as trash removal. So when Magic Kingdom was built, the ground level was built as these utilidors to help be able to navigate the parks underground. It's really at ground level that they then built Magic Kingdom up on top of it. But that is what the utilidors are for. Those are considered backstage areas for cast members to utilize. Again, all these terms are coming back full circle that we talked about earlier. So that's again just a fun term you may or may not come across on your research for your Disney trip. Just a few more here to round out the terminology for our Disney parks language. Value resorts. So we talked about deluxe, we talked about moderate. Value resort is your lowest level of Walt Disney World resorts. So that is going to be the one that is most affordable at the bottom level. It does have the least amount of amenities when you're comparing it to the other ones. But those are going to be your value level resorts. So All Stars. I talked just not that long ago about the Skyliner options of Pop Century and Art of Animation. Those are all value resorts that you can find at Disney World. And again, like I mentioned, Disneyland does not have value resorts that are officially Disney resorts. All of their resorts are that deluxe level. And the last term that I have on my terminology list, again, not a complete comprehensive list, just kind of your basic encyclopedia to get by, and that is virtual queue. Now, this is a system that is frequently used by the parks where you must join the queue on your app, whether it's Disney World or Disneyland, and wait for your boarding group to be called. Once your group is called, then you may join the queue. This is something that has been used and likely will be used in the future for Disney World new opening attractions. It was used for a brief time for Rise of the Resistance. It's been used for Tron, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and it's been used for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Over in Disneyland, they've had a couple different virtual queues as well, and they currently have the only virtual queue that is in use. So Disney World right now does not have any virtual queues that are being utilized currently, but Disneyland has one that is used for their World of Color show at Disney's California Adventure Park. So that is one that you can join at noon, and it will give you a designated location that you'll be able to view the show in. So that is the only virtual queue at the moment that I'm recording this. Now that could change, and I do anticipate that will change going forward with some of the new attractions that are going to be opening at the parks that we've been hearing about, things that they talked about at the most recent D23 conference, hearing about some of the new attractions. A lot of them will likely, at least initially, open up with a virtual queue. It may not last long. Disneyland, when they opened their version of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, had a virtual queue, but it didn't last long because they found that they didn't need it. So it really just depends on the attraction. It depends on the location. It depends on kind of what else is going on. And thank you, Live Laugh Lem in our live chat here is saying they also use virtual queues for special events. So special event merch like Run Disney or May the 4th, things like that. And there is a virtual queue for Santa. That is very true. So that those are not in the immediate being used. We're getting close to May the 4th here as I'm recording this. So there will likely be a merchandise virtual queue for that. But as far as attractions go at Disney World, there are not currently any virtual queues being used. So thank you, Lem, for that note. That is very true. Okay, I think we made it to the end of our terminology little encyclopedia there. It was a lot that I threw at you. Hopefully you found it helpful. But the second half of this episode here, I am going to run down just some abbreviations that you may come across because there are a lot of them. For whatever reason, Disney people, Disney adults, Disney frequenters like to abbreviate things. Don't know why, don't know where it started, but we're going to run through some abbreviations now. A lot of these are going to be things that are fairly self-explanatory or will just need a brief explanation. Again, we're going in ABC order because that's how my type A brain works. So first on my list of abbreviations is ADR, and that stands for Advanced Dining Reservations. Those are the reservations that you make at your table service restaurants before your trip. Those open 60 days before your trip, and you can make them on the Disney website or on your app, depending. But ADR is the term that you will see and the abbreviation that you will see when you're referring to that. Next on my list is just the abbreviation AK, or you'll sometimes see DAK or DAC, depending on who you're talking to. And that is just, all of those are simply just abbreviations for Animal Kingdom. So Disney's Animal Kingdom is where you get the DAK, DAC from. So it's just abbreviations for that park. So if you hear that, that's what people are talking about. And kind of hand in hand with that is you will see and hear people mention AKL, which is the Animal Kingdom Lodge. That is a deluxe resort that is very close to the Animal Kingdom Park. So they will abbreviate that AKL, just like they'll abbreviate AK for Animal Kingdom. Another resort abbreviation that you may hear is AOA. We've actually already talked about this resort earlier when we were talking about the Skyliner. And AOA is the Art of Animation Resort. That is a value resort at the end of the Skyliner ride, or Skyliner line that we talked about a little bit ago. Something else that you will hear in the abbreviation section of this Speaking the Disney Parks language is AP. And that is just an annual pass holder or an annual pass for the Disney parks. You will also hear Magic Key for Disneyland, but for Disney World, you will always hear and see it called AP, or you will hear about annual pass holders being called APs. Another one that you will hear for these abbreviations is BBB, which stands for the Bippity Boppity Boutique. That is a very common one that I see a lot on like Facebook groups and people asking about reservations for this. The Bippity Boppity Boutique is a special opportunity that you can book for your kiddo to be transformed by one of the fairy godmothers into a princess. They will do hair and makeup and make them looking super special for their park day. It is a very difficult reservation to get. It opens 60 days out at midnight. So definitely a hard one to get, but that is what you will see. when people refer to the BBB is the Bippity Boppity Boutique. Another one in our B section, and just kind of a general note for DVC resorts, which we talked about DVC earlier, is you will see things like BCV or BWV, and those will stand for the villa rooms. So, like BCV would be Beach Club Villa. So, if you see those terms when people are talking about resorts, chances are good they're talking about the villas, which are typically the DVC resort, some of the DVC room and resort options that you have. Another B abbreviation is BOG, which is for Be Our Guest. That is a table service restaurant located in Magic Kingdom that you get to dine in Beast's Castle. So if you see people referring to BOG, that is Be Our Guest restaurant. This next one is an attraction that actually has a few different versions of an abbreviation, and that is for the Big Thunder Mountain attraction. So you will see BTM just for Big Thunder Mountain. You will see BTMR for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, or you will sometimes see people do two R's at the end. So BTMRR for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is the official full name of that attraction. Most of the time, you're just going to see BTM, which stands for Big Thunder Mountain. It is a roller coaster attraction at Magic Kingdom. It is currently under refurb as we are recording this for the entirety of the year 2025. Slated to open back again sometime 2026. But if you see people using the abbreviation BTM, that is Big Thunder Mountain. Another resort that you will frequently see abbreviated is the Caribbean Beach Resort, and you'll see CBR for that one. So that is a really popular one that a lot of people will use when talking about it. Just to abbreviate that long resort name, they use CBR in place of Caribbean Beach Resort. One that we talked about earlier, but just one to again note, is that you will sometimes see cast members just referred to as CMs. So people will abbreviate cast member to just the two letters and refer to the workers as that. Another attraction that you might see is COP, which stands for Carousel of Progress. That is a theater attraction in Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom. It is one of the OG original attractions created by Walt. So you will see people refer to Carousel of Progress as COP. The last C on our list is CRT, which is Cinderella's Royal Table. Cinderella's Royal Table is the table service restaurant inside of Cinderella Castle at Magic Kingdom. That is where you get to meet Cinderella and dine inside of the castle, which is a very special and quite pricey experience. But if you see people referring to CRT, that is Cinderella's Royal Table. Moving on to our next letter of the alphabet, you will see oftentimes the abbreviation for Disney's California Adventure Park, which is one of the two parks out in Disneyland, abbreviated to DCA. So 9 times out of 10, when you are talking to somebody about Disneyland, they're going to talk about Disneyland and DCA. So DCA is Disney's California Adventure. We already talked about the Disney Dining Plan. Disney Dining Plan can sometimes be abbreviated as DDP, especially if you're looking at working with like travel agents and things like that. You will see a lot of that when it comes to package deals and bookings and things like that. A couple other Disneyland specific ones. You will sometimes see people refer to the Disneyland Hotel as DLH. Not as frequent as some of the other abbreviations that we see for resorts, but that one is out there. You will also sometimes see people abbreviate the Disneyland, the park, just as DL or DLR for Disneyland Resort. And the last one on that list on the D part of our list is DVC, which is that Disney Vacation Club that we talked about earlier in our terminology. A couple E terms here for you. You will frequently see ECV used in the parks and in conversation about the parks. So ECV is basically those motorized scooters or wheelchairs. You'll hear them referred to as both. So the ECV actually stands for, and I didn't know this before I looked it up, stand for the Electric Convenience Vehicle. That's what ECV stands for. So now you know. Now you have learned something new. If you're like me and didn't know what it stood for, but knew what an ECV was, now you know what it stands for. So ECVs are those vehicles that you will see in the parks. Our other E abbreviation is EMH or EMM, and those stand for extra magic hours or early morning magic. You'll see those kind of used interchangeably. Extra magic hours is actually a term that doesn't currently exist at Disney because it is the term that was used pre-pandemic for the extra park time that the resort guests got at the parks. They now call it early morning magic. So it's a little bit different, but it still means the same thing. So most people will use those interchangeably. So you hear EMH more frequently because that's the term that most people are used to using. But EMM for early morning magic is also a term in that same kind of umbrella. And again, that just stands for resort guests at that stay on Disney property get extra time in the morning to have the parks to themselves before the non-resort guests and locals get to enter the park. So that's what that one means. A couple terms that begin with F as we work through our alphabetical list of abbreviations when we're speaking the Disney park language. And that is what I lovingly refer to as folk or FOLK or FOTLK, which just stands for Festival of the Lion King. I've been calling it folk for a really long time because of Stevie, and Stevie being a cast member, that was something that she picked up when she worked at the parks and passed on to me. And that one is a lot shorter. So I appreciate the abbreviation of folk for Festival of the Lion King. And that is a show over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, or DAC, should I say, as we talked about earlier. But folk is one of the shows that is performed daily over at Animal Kingdom. And it is a wonderful show. There's lots of very specialized performers that are in that show. Some acrobatics, some fire spinning. There's lots of fun stuff in that show. So definitely a great one. And while we're talking about the offerings over at DAC, another abbreviation that exists over there is FOP, and that is for Flight of Passage, which is one of the Avatar rides over at Animal Kingdom. So you'll often see that abbreviated as FOP for Flight of Passage. In that same regards, another attraction that you will see abbreviated frequently is the Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's just GOTG. So if you want to abbreviate Guardians of the Galaxy, some people just call it Guardians, but if you're looking for the kind of acronym abbreviation, GOTG is what you'll see for that one. A couple other in our H section here. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, just trying to give you the basics and the most important ones. But it's not a total list of every single one that you may run into. But let's move on to our H's. We have HEA, which stands for Happily Ever After. Happily Ever After is the fireworks show currently running at Magic Kingdom. So if you see people talking about going to see HEA or referring to HEA is at 8 o'clock tonight, that's what they're talking about, is that Happily Ever After fireworks show at the castle at Magic Kingdom. Another attraction that you will see abbreviated often is the Haunted Mansion. Most people will just, abbreviate it to HM. That one, I don't know whether or not that actually needs the abbreviation. It's not that long of a name, but most people will refer to it just as HM for Haunted Mansion. Another park that has abbreviations, we talked about DAC earlier for Disney's Animal Kingdom, but Hollywood Studios will often be referred to as HS or just Studios. It can get a little tricky if people are referring to it just as Studios, because there is also a Universal park called Universal Studios. So you have to kind of be aware of that as if you're seeing someone refer to it just as studios, but HS is typically the abbreviation that you'll see when people are writing it out, if they're asking for advice or looking at itineraries and those types of things, you'll see that HS. Our last H is HOP, which stands for Hall of Presidents. That is an attraction at Magic Kingdom that is in it's in the list of the some of the original attractions that were created for the parks. It is a history of different presidents, lots of audio animatronics in there. We talked about those earlier. But HOP stands for Hall of Presidents. Moving on to our eyes. This one is a little more niche that not a lot of people uh, m- may or may not use, and that is the abbreviation for the International Festival of the Arts. You will hear people call it eye farts, or you will hear people call it just simply farts. Don't know where that abbreviation came from. I mean, you can see where that abbreviation came from, but that is one of the festivals over at Epcot. It runs typically January, February at the beginning of the year. Lots of really great artwork. It's a super fun festival with a very strange acronym. So if you hear that or see that now, you know what they're talking about. Um, I felt like I had to include that one because it's a very strange abbreviation, and a lot of people, I feel like, get confused by it. So that is what they are talking about if you hear someone refer to iFarts, International Festival of the Arts over at Epcot. A couple acronyms that are near and dear to my heart. Let's talk about lightning lane acronyms. And again, we're not talking about lightning lanes in this. I know that's always a hot topic and that you guys always want to hear more. I do have a lightning lane episode planned coming up here soon, but you will often see these abbreviations for lightning lane. You will see just simply LL for lightning lane if you're talking about, wanting to purchase a lightning lane, getting a lightning lane, having a lightning lane. Those are the passes that help you wait in a shorter line, similar to the fast pass system that you are used to from the past, or Genie Plus that you're used to from the past. Lightning Lane is your terminology that you're using now. You will also see LLMP, which stands for Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. Multi-Pass is the Lightning Lane that gives you access to like 90% of the rides throughout the parks. And it is called that at Disney World and Disneyland. So both of them have lightning lanes. Both of them have LLMP, which is the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. Both of them also have the Lightning Lane Single Pass, or LLSP, if you're abbreviating. So the Single Pass are those e-ticket attractions that you do have to pay more for to purchase that single pass for those. So if you see those terminologies with the LL in front of it, those are Lightning Lane ones that they're talking about. The last Lightning Lane one that I have is the Lightning Lane Premier Pass, which you guessed it, LLPP. And that Premier Pass is the newest pass that they just released just a few months ago that gives you access to every attraction in the park for one ride, and you don't have to pick times. So you can redeem that at any time throughout the park's operating hours, and that is that Premier Pass option. So LLPP, or sometimes just Premier Pass. Again, all of these go through kind of several different iterations of abbreviations. Some people will drop the lightning lane altogether and just call them single pass and multi-pass. I tend to do that. I don't know why, it just makes more sense to my brain that way, I guess. But so lightning lane multi-pass, lightning lane single pass, and lightning lane premier pass are all under that lightning lane umbrella. Whether or not they're abbreviated in the way you anticipate, it's just a good thing to know for all of those. My other L1 is back to attractions, and that is LWTL, which is Living with the Land. That is a very commonly abbreviated attraction over at Epcot in the Land Pavilion next to Soarin'. It is the one that takes you through all of the greenhouses and shows you all of the different ways that Epcot is growing food and helping to supply some of their restaurants with vegetables and all sorts of other things in there. We talked about Living with the Land on one of our most recent episodes where we talked about the Behind the Seeds tour. So if you heard that episode on specialty tours, that was the attraction that we were talking about with Living with the Land. LWTL is that one. Let's hit our M's now in our different speaking the Disney park language abbreviations that we're talking about. So for the M's, we talked about magic bands earlier in our terminology. You will see them abbreviated a couple different ways. You will see just MB. You will see MB with the plus sign for Magic Band Plus, and you will just see M Band also as an abbreviation. So all of those three can be utilized for magic bands, which we talked about earlier as being those extra kind of bracelet options for your park entry and ticket and resort entry if you choose to use them. So all of those abbreviations you'll see. Earlier, we also talked about the My Disney Experience app being your Walt Disney World app that you need. And you will almost always see that abbreviated as MDE. So if somebody's talking about the app, talking about something to find or do on the app, you're going to see it abbreviated as MDE. Another easy M to figure out is MK, which is Magic Kingdom. So pretty much all of the parks other than Epcot, which is an abbreviation in itself, which I guess I didn't talk about, but I can talk about here in a moment. But all of the parks have some sort of an abbreviation to them just for ease of conversation, I guess. Who knows, right? So MK is Magic Kingdom. If you see that, that's what they're talking about. And I will go back to ease here momentarily because I did miss Epcot on my list because I forget sometimes that it's an abbreviation, but the entire park name is an acronym. So Epcot stands for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, and that is where the Epcot name came from. That Walt Disney gave it. So that just refers to the park. It refers to Walt's original idea of what he wanted Epcot to be. We know that it didn't quite end up the way he wanted, whether it be feasible or not in today's society to do what he wanted to do, who knows, but that is what Epcot stands for. So now you know, in case you were wondering. Okay, back to our M's. A couple more M's to talk about. The next M is one of my favorite attractions, and that is the MMRR, which stands for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So MMRR is the abbreviation for that. That is an attraction at Hollywood Studios inside their replica Chinese theater that they have there. It is Mickey's first attraction that we have and that we got. It opened in 2020, right before the pandemic kind of had everything closed down. But you will see that one abbreviated as MMRR quite frequently because it does have such a long name. Speaking of long names, the last two M's that I have for this list, again, not a complete list, just some of the abbreviations that I thought maybe would be helpful. The next one is MNSSHP. So when you say it out loud, it doesn't quite work, but when you type it, it's very helpful. So MNSSHP stands for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. That is the special ticketed event at Halloween time at Magic Kingdom that they have. It runs typically August through Halloween. And again, it is a special ticketed event, special fireworks, special parades, special character meet and greets, special food. But you will very frequently see when people are typing things out that are Disney related that they abbreviate it that way. When people speak it, not typically abbreviated that way. People will just call it Not So Scary or the Halloween Party. But that is what it is when you see the MNSSHP. On the flip side, the other big event that you will find at Magic Kingdom is the MVMCP, which is Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. So on the Christmas side of things, also an abbreviation, also a very long name for the event. Also a special ticketed event with special fireworks, parade, characters, food, all of that. But yes, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, MVMCP. So those are the abbreviations that you will see for both of those parties. Again, those ones I feel like make the most sense to me because those are very long names for those different events that you can go to. Okay, we're going to keep on moving on. Again, these are just terms and acronyms that I feel like are helpful when speaking the Disney park language. The next one, we've got a couple resorts to talk about. The first one is POFQ, which stands for Port Orleans French Quarter. So that is a moderate resort on Disney World property. And because it does have a longer name, you will see it abbreviated POFQ a lot. Again, not one that you hear people say as an abbreviation, but definitely one that you will see people write as an abbreviation. Now, the next one is one that is often written and spoken, and it's not really an acronym, but it is an abbreviation, and that is just the Poly. So you will hear people talk about Disney's Polynesian Resort, which is one of the deluxe resorts on the monorail line, very close to Magic Kingdom. But people will often call the Polynesian Resort Poly. So if you hear people talking about, I'm going to go to the Poly, or I want to go eat at the Poly, or I'm going to go visit the Poly, that's what they're talking about, is that Polynesian Resort. The last abbreviation on my P list is Back to Another Attraction. And again, this one is one that is written but not really spoken. And that is POTC, which is Pirates of the Caribbean. So if you see that written out, they're talking about the ride Pirates. I also will see just Pirates as an abbreviation for that. But POTC is another option that you will see. Again, not really spoken, but definitely written for that one. We were talking about dining earlier. You will sometimes see the abbreviations for quick service and table service as just QS and TS. Again, we talked about those earlier. So QS is quick service, TS is your table service for that. A couple other, quite a few actually, attractions that are on this list here. Rock and Roller Coaster, which is a roller coaster attraction at Hollywood Studios, is often abbreviated as just Rockin' or RNRC, Rock and Roller Coaster. So that is an abbreviation for that. Rise of the Resistance, again, a Star Wars ride over at Hollywood Studios. People will call it Rise or ROR for Rise of the Resistance. So both of those abbreviations you will see for Rise. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, a roller coaster over at Magic Kingdom, will often be abbreviated SDMT or the number 7 DMT. So you will see both of those as an option for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Some people will just call it Seven Dwarves. So again, lots of different variations. These are just kind of the most common options for those abbreviations for these attractions. Tower of Terror at Hollywood Studios is another one that you will see. TOT or TOT. That is one that you will hear frequently for Tower of Terror. And the last attraction on this little section is Toy Story Mania or Toy Story Midway Mania if you're out in Disneyland. And you will see that just as TSM or TSMM out in Disneyland. That one is one that is spoken more than the other ones. So TSM, Toy Story Mania, that is what they're referring to, which is the arcade style attraction at Hollywood Studios. If you're talking about TSM or Toy Story Mania, or it is a similar attraction out in Disney's California Adventure. Okay, just a few more. We're almost to the end. Thanks for hanging in. I know this has been fast and furious, but hopefully these abbreviations are helpful for you for planning your next upcoming trip. We talked a little bit earlier about the TTC when I was talking about the monorail. I mentioned that the TTC is the Transportation and Ticket Center. So this exists because when Walt was drawing up the plans for Magic Kingdom, he did not want the parking to be immediately at the gate. He wanted you to kind of park out of sight and really be immersed as you approached the gate and the train station for Magic Kingdom. So, thus, the Transportation and Ticket Center was created. This is the parking lot for Magic Kingdom and the main hub for the monorails. You can also catch the ferry boat here to go over to Magic Kingdom, but that is what this serves as. So anytime somebody is talking about the TTC, they're talking about the Transportation and Ticket Center for that. Um, Another sort of transportation related one, but the Walt Disney World Railroad inside of Magic Kingdom will often be abbreviated as WDWRR when people are typing it. Again, not really a spoken one. Most people just call it the railroad or the train inside of Magic Kingdom, but that takes you kind of around the perimeter with three different stations, one on Main Street, one over by Big Thunder and Frontierland, and one over in Fantasyland, adjacent to Fantasyland near Dumbo and the Barnstormer in the Storybook Circus area. But you will see that abbreviated as they are writing it in the as WDWRR for the Walt Disney World Railroad. Okay, my final abbreviation of my not so complete but very thorough list of Disney abbreviations when you are speaking the Disney park language is WOD, and that is World of Disney. I talked about this earlier when I mentioned Disney Springs in our terminology section, that World of Disney is the largest merchandise store on Walt Disney World property. It is at Disney Springs, and you will often see it written and abbreviated as WOD. Some people do call it WOD, but that's not as common as just seeing it abbreviated that way. Most people will talk about just World of Disney as the name for that one. So I think that brings us to an end of our list. Oh, Vinny, you're right. In our live chat, WDW. That was one that I didn't even mention. I didn't even think about that one. That one was so obvious. But yes, you will see WDW as the abbreviation for Walt Disney World down in Florida. That is the park in Orlando, if you are confused about which is which. But WDW is the Walt Disney World abbreviation. Thank you to my live chat for that one, because somehow that made it, that didn't make it on my list. So thank you. Appreciate that. But overall, I hope that all of this is super helpful to you as you are thinking about your next trip, planning your first trip, your second trip, your third trip, conversing about a Disney trip with a travel agent or a friend who maybe is helping you. I hope that all of this was very helpful and will give you some more insight when it comes to all of that moving forward. As always, if you've got additional questions or suggestions, ideas, topics that you want us to cover here on Mom Street USA, you can always reach out to us, momstreetusa@gmail.com. You can find us on a ton of the social media channels. We are on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook at Mom Street USA. And you can also find us on our good friend Kirk at Walrus Carp, his Discord server. We do have a Mom Street channel over there, so feel free to reach out to us over there as well. So our next podcast episode will be another hub episode. We'll be back with our good friend Stevie. She will be joining us for our next hub episode. I don't totally know what her plan is for our next topic, so it'll be a surprise to all of us when we get there. But thank you guys all so much for being here for this episode. I hope it was helpful, like I said before. And if you need any of the previous episodes from Mom Street USA, we have all of those available on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and subscribe to us over there so you can have access to all of those replays in case there were things that you missed that we talked about tonight that you want to know more information about. But all of that being said, I will catch you guys on the next episode of Mom Street USA. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you guys all soon. Thank you. Bye.